Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2, week 1. Today's outline is we're just going to talk about the assignment 1. I'm going to do a demonstration and kind of walk you through an example of how I put this together, what I thought would be a good example. So we're going to do that, take a break, and then continue after the break with the rest of the demonstration. So that is today's outline. That is the plan. Let's go ahead and jump into assignment 1 here. So first you're going to do research, find 2 quality logos and read their case studies, use your book or the links below. And really if you don't have to, this is, some parts of the assignment, and I understand that might be kind of hard to know for some people. It's like, what can you embellish on or add to? What can you do instead of, if your logos, welcome Corley.
Thank you.
So if your logos don't necessarily, if you don't find anything here that you want, or in your book, maybe there's like a logo that you drive by every day and you can't stand it. Maybe next time you do that, just stop by the side of the road and snap a photo of it, and you can use that, for example. Maybe it's something in the grocery store that you shop at and it's a brand that you buy every day that you can't stand, that you really don't think is a good logo. Or maybe it's a logo that you really like. Feel free to get inspired by your environment and kind of pull that into it. I think whenever I can do that, it tends to motivate me a little bit more on projects, and I'll have a little bit more energy in terms of how I approach them. So while these are some good suggestions, your book's a good suggestion. You can do that. Certainly these 2 sites. Don't feel like you're specifically limited to that. You can go out and take photos or use like the phone book is a good example of really bad a lot of bad logos in the phone book. If you have any old phone books, or sometimes you can get in the newsstands, coffee shops will have free publications like local magazines and things. And you can always find really crummy logos in those newsstand magazines that are usually free, that you can just pick up on the way out the door. So wherever you get it, just make sure that it adheres to finding 2 good quality logos that you think represent the brand well, the company well, and then your 2 logos that you feel don't represent the company image well. So feel free to use whichever you like. Notice this here. It says, please limit your logo choices to those that can be shared in class. There will be quite a bit of point deduction for logos that are sexual in nature. We just don't want that for the school. It's just inappropriate, and we can't share it in the class. So by using a lot of those, if you do a Google search, I'm not going to do it, but if you do a Google search for poor logos, bad logos, whatever, you're going to get a lot of logos out there that are sexual innuendos, and that's not really what we're looking for, because we can't share that in class. We're trying to keep it moderately clean here. So it happens every time. I just suggest you use caution on a lot of those, that while that is a point, you don't want it to accidentally resemble something that's sexual in nature that you don't want. Let's limit it to what we can share in class, what we can kind of show others in the class, and stay away from those sexual innuendo logos that you see on the internet. And if you don't, then it's going to be a major point deduction. It's not worth it to you. And it also tells me that you didn't watch the recording. So you know how it goes. But any sexual logos, they're not going to be shared in class. So make sure that you choose logos using your best discretion, and avoid those kind of logos that we don't need. So question is, do we want 4 logos total, 2 good ones and 2 bad ones? Yeah, exactly. So total of 4. And then what you're going to do once you have those 4, you're going to redesign the 2 poor logos so they're better ambassadors for the company name. Again, when you do the redesign, think of CRAP, contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. I know I keep saying that, but repetition is good in this case. It's really easy one to remember. So you'll be also creating 3 rough thumbnail sketches for each logo redesign. So you want to include all of that stuff. If you don't have any one of these things, then obviously you're going to get marked down for it. Some of them are going to be worth a little bit more than others. Certainly, last one, number 4 on the list is right. 250 words minimum. That's roughly a page. As I said yesterday, I'm not counting words, but it's about 1 page worth in Microsoft Word. If you have the typical default setup for Word, which is like, I think, what is it, 2-line spacing and 12-point type, usually times or something like that. It's a roughly 250 words. It's about a page. And if it's really, to me, if it's like over half a page, you'll probably get full credit for that one. And probably, like, you can even put a limit on it. Don't go more than 2 pages. Keep it kind of, brief when it needs to be brief. And, as they say, keep it applicable, keep it appropriate. And you should be good on this one. So in this today, we're going to go over conversion into the PDF document. If you've got, let's say one way to do this would be to bring it all into Illustrator. That'd be easy enough. Or we talked about it yesterday, you could bring it into InDesign. Or if you wanted to have this all separate and you had a separate Word document, you had separate, let's say, JPEGs from thumbnail sketches that you had, and then you had the AI files, or the AI file from the redesign, and then you had all of this stuff that you used, for example. You can also just combine it. I'll do an example of that. I kind of showed it yesterday, but I didn't actually demonstrate it. But you can use the software, the Acrobat software, to combine all of those loose documents into one package. The problem with it is that it's not really formatted very well. It's a little bit messy. It's kind of a messy way of creating a PDF. In this case, it's what they're asking for, but obviously, if you wanted to do the whole thing in InDesign or in Illustrator, you're more than welcome to do that. And I think that that's actually the better way to do it because it's a little bit more presentable. And this is kind of a last-ditch solution that, let's say, a client just wants all the raw documents at the last minute. I guess it's important to know how to do that. So we'll go over that in class. But when you turn it in to the Dropbox, it's not necessarily, you don't have to, follow this rule. That's another one here, that you don't have to follow this multi-page document created in Acrobat. Feel free to do it in InDesign or Illustrator. Better choice in my opinion. So I won't go through this. It's kind of the same submission instructions in all assignments. Just upload it to the Dropbox. You'll be uploading a PDF file. It's a single PDF file. That would be the only restriction. Don't upload multiple PDF files, because the whole idea here that they're trying to teach is to keep all of those files together, keep them organized, so that we don't have a bunch of floating files that somebody forgets to send. And if working with clients and forwarding emails and doing reviews, things can get kind of confusing. So it's just a practice where we might want to keep all of our documents in one PDF file and keep them together, keep them organized so that everybody stays on the same page, more or less. So that's, hopefully you can kind of see through the details of the words to kind of get what I'm looking for. And I'll show you an example of a project here that I did, and we'll break this down kind of step by step here. I thought I had it open. Here we go. So here, for example, is my project that I brought into Illustrator. So this is how I exported it from Illustrator. I've got my logos, my good examples for logos, and I have it labeled up here, 2 good logos. Got 2 bad logos. Labels will be optional on this project, but I would recommend them, especially if you set it up this way. It helps me to just see that you've covered everything, and it helps you to know that you've covered everything. 2 good, 2 bad, my sketches here, and then my redesigns here. So we'll talk about this more in just a minute. The only thing that this is missing is the write-up, so the 1-page write-up. Let's take a look at that. So this is in the Word doc. I thought I had Word open. It's got it open here. But what I could do is just show you right now. Let's say that I want this. Let's see. Let's say I want this PDF because I turned it from my AI file to a PDF, and I want this PDF. Let's say I just have it set up like this. I just decided to work this way. Bringing all of my documents into Illustrator here, all of my logos and everything all on each on its own artboard. These are just 8.5 by 11 horizontal, so landscape format. And then I just exported this as a PDF, but you wouldn't have to. You could just use an AI file. I don't know if this Acrobat converts Word documents, but let's check it out. I can't remember. Let's check that out and see if it gives us a hard time when we try to do that. So let's say that I want, let's say I don't even need to make a PDF. I can do an AI file, at least I should. Let me make sure of that. So I want this file. I'll just drag it right in here. And as you can see, you get this. And that's just my AI file. And I'm going to have to preview that, make sure that it gave me all of my artboards. I believe it did, but we'll preview that after we're done with this. And write up 1. Let's see if it does the Word doc. Let's just see if it does that. So it's given me a little bit of a hard time, but it looks like it's working. It's strange that it not launched a different version of Microsoft Word, but maybe I see 2 versions down here in my doc at the bottom of my screen, which is weird. Let's say I wanted a PDF. That will easily just drag into this Acrobat window. So let's say I wanted this. I don't, but you can see it just pops up really easily here and shows it's a multiple page document, which doesn't make sense because I think I had it all on 1 page. Maybe that's just the icon. Maybe it's not a multiple page. So anyways, let's say I wanted all 3 of these. So all I did, once again, once you have Acrobat Pro launched, you just go, what was it now? Okay, so File, Create, Combine Files into single PDF. That was how I got to this window. But I apologize for not showing that at first. I believe I just had this window open. But that's how you get to it. File, Create, Combine Files into single PDF. So we just hit Combine up here, and it should just go through and then preview it. Let's make sure we got all our pages. Yeah, got all our artboards in here. 2 good logos, 2 bad logos, my sketches, my redesigns, and then my Word document here. And then lastly, it should be my PDF, but for some reason, I don't know if it, not sure why it actually went through and did these extra pages in here. You know what? I know why. This here is a full PDF with the extra pages. That's why. I thought it was just this 1 page, so my mistake on that. But I don't need those. I could just delete them. I can edit over here once I brought all that stuff in. Let's say I don't need 2 versions of this. Just delete it, hit the delete, select it, hit the delete key, click OK, and that'll take it out of this. I hit the save again, Command S, it's saving as. Name it whatever is appropriate. There's a school naming format that they're using now with the information broken down here. So follow the usual format. It's got your, what assignment it is. It's got at least your last name and the week. So just follow what the standard is that you're normally used to following when you label that, and then you can upload that to the Dropbox. So another way to do this, once you have all your documents into Illustrator, which might be my preferred way to do it, really, even taking that Word document here with our text. And like I say, I think I'll just copy this text and paste it into here. Let's make a new artboard first. So artboard number 6. I believe it would put it in the right order anyways, but maybe I'll just, for the sake of keeping organized in Illustrator, we'll just drag it down here at the bottom. And this way I can take my Word document, take my, that's in the clipboard right now. As you remember, we copied from Word. Take the Type tool, and we'll drag out a big, just a text box here, and we'll paste it in. Now that's, maybe I'll make that a little smaller, and kind of format this maybe in an interesting way. Maybe we'll put the margin over on this side and move it over here. And I'm always a fan of labels. This is optional in this case, but I tend to really like when students put labels on their projects, and it just kind of makes it easier to follow. So maybe I'll call this write-up. So now we got labels on all the pages, which we didn't have when we did it just as a Acrobat. We combined all those files, and we can format this however we like. Make sure we keep all of our text in here. But as you see, this way is a little bit more presentable, and I can just easily take this and make a PDF out of this here. Give it some more room like that. So, 250 words. This is more than that, I'm sure. I can even see exactly in Word how much text is here. So it tells you 488 words. So this is quite a bit more than what you actually need. It's about double, not quite, but about double what you actually need. So really, if you only had that, that'd be fine. If you only had that much text, that would be fine. That's 138 words. It's okay with me if that's all you have. But whatever it is that's appropriate, I would say probably, let's say a little bit more, let's say like, 150 words if you need kind of a baseline, at least that is what I'd be looking for on your write-up. So it's, I think you can think over half a page to a full page, then you're within reason, you're within the ballpark. So, I can kind of see a reason why you might need a little bit more. I can also see why you might just want to be brief with this. So up to you. I'd say minimum 150, maximum probably 500 words. This is 488 in this example. And as you can see, it fits on one single page pretty easily with the 12-point typeface. Looks like Cambria is the typeface that is being used here. So that is an example of a whole project. And now that I've shown you how to export it, I'll kind of talk about the breakdown of these logos and kind of run through it step by step and show how I arrived at what I did here. So I always like to also make little notes on the side, especially if I'm working in Illustrator, InDesign. I just break down what are the real criteria of this assignment. And Richard asked earlier, so we just want 4 logos total, 2 good ones and 2 bad ones. But when you're doing a lot of these projects, sometimes it's helpful to just kind of take all of this content here, Command C, copy, and then paste in your document over here off to the side, so it's not going to be in here. And then you just kind of break it down. So you just say, all right, 2 quality logos, and read their case studies. I mean, obviously we're going to do that. So we have some idea about what motivated those logos. So I just kind of break it down like this. It's easier to read that way. 2 quality logos. I can just take this one and go 2 poor logos. And so this way I just have off to the side what the criteria is for that assignment. And I don't forget everything. I'll just delete that. That's just an example. But here is what I did in this case. And I can just look over and make sure that, all right, I have everything that is needed for this assignment. I don't have to keep going back to the web page and getting that information. It's all right here, contained within my Illustrator document. It just makes a really convenient, easy reference that helps me to remember everything, all those little details that sometimes forget. It's easy to forget. So I would recommend that practice. Seems to be really good, really helpful in most cases when you're doing these assignments, because I can't stand going back and forth trying to figure out, all right, did I get everything here? Has everything been covered? I like to go through the assignment, break it down, simplify the directions, redesign the poor logo, create 3 sketches from each logo design. These are just little bullet points for each one. And then the 250 word paper. Now it says using only Microsoft Word. Well, I recommend you write in Microsoft Word. I think actually writing and typing in Illustrator, typing your content is not very fun. It's not very effective, in my opinion. You kind of get lost. It doesn't. MS Word, any of those word processor programs are a lot easier to write in. But that doesn't mean you can't present it in a format like this that makes a little bit more sense. So I'm going to give you that option, however you like to do it. But the recommendation is to use only Microsoft Word. There's a good reason for that, and that's just that it's easier to do word processing and writing in this program, a lot easier than, or any word processor program. I don't mind if you use TextEdit if you're a Mac user, or I don't know what they call it, the version for Windows users, but you can use your default text editor for that. When you actually write up the content here, make sure you do use a word processor of some sort. MS Word is good, but again, it's just a recommendation, and I think that's just to sway people from actually, typing it up in Illustrator, because you'll see it's not a very good way to write. It's a little bit harder to write in InDesign and in Illustrator. It's easier to write in any one of those word processor programs will work great. All right, so in the write-up, we're talking about how the original good logos and your redesigned logos are successfully communicating a positive company image. And then lastly, we have all the criteria here. So good logos, bad logos. Here we've got Apple and how they've evolved. This is different from what you see today. I think they've stepped back to kind of a flat design. This was really a popular look, I would say about 10 years ago, where everything had all kinds of dimension and lighting and little reflections and glows and drop shadows. So this was a really popular style. Looking at that, that's not extremely, a little bit pixelated, but you can see, this isn't necessarily, the logo on the right, Apple's logo on the right, isn't necessarily better, but it's a little bit more visually interesting, I think, with everything that it has going on with it. But the question is, does it make a better logo? And I don't think it does. And I think the simpler logo over here on the left, which is more what they've gone back to now, is easier to read. It's a quicker read. You can, almost, if you look at it from your peripheral vision, which is a lot of times how you perceive logos in everyday life, you don't look directly at them all the time. You just see them out of your peripheral vision. You're seeing what is here. It's more easy to recognize the one on the left out of your peripheral vision than it is over here, because it's got all this gunk on it, all these glows, drop shadows. It looks kind of plasticky or glassy or whatever. And the other thing, it's also kind of dated. If you were to see a logo like this today, you would think that this company was stuck back, 10 years ago with their design choice, their design style. So those trends are always something to be aware of as well. I mean, if I was using this Apple for an illustration project, for example, I might lean toward the one on the right because it's more appropriate. But with logos, a lot of times you just want to have that recognition, and it's a much faster recognition when that logo is really simple, like the one on the left. So we're just looking at a very simple cutout shape of an apple. And for that reason, as a logo, this is far more effective, the one on the left. And it's also, I think, a lot of reason why Apple's gone back to this flat style. And flat has been popular for a while, and it is still today, especially over this style on the right. But all popularity aside, I think if you're talking strictly the effectiveness of logos, if you can keep that simple and keep it, let it read in a minimal sense, you're going to have a much more effective logo. And so, I'd probably talk about that in my write-up when I presented this. But Adobe, I think, there's not a whole lot of difference here, but you can see, this, for example, would be a one color on reverse version. And this one would be, two color versions. So the red, white, black, or the red and black on white. You can just see how they've kind of used it. I don't know what they're actually using today. Let's check that out. I should have brought that in, but let's see what their website shows us. Adobe official site. They change this up a little bit every now and then. So I don't see Creative Cloud is what they're pushing more than anything. That's their main product. So it looks like, I'm guessing, they're using this little symbol here. But if I was to look at Adobe as a company, see if this gives us a different. Yeah, they've still got that cloud icon. So that's how they've changed. And this is a definitely, they're using this different here, but this wouldn't read very well, the embellished version of this logo with all this color and all the beveling and the highlights, shadows, all this extra stuff going on. It looks kind of cool, but and now I come back to this. This is here. This is what their current logo is. So this on the right. But as you see, they've also simplified this. Here it is in 2 colors earlier. Still a lot the same. Here it is in 1 color and on reverse. But they're still using these branded elements like the cloud that kind of looks like, I don't know what this looks like. It's sort of just kind of a mismatch of exchange, like a cloud exchange with these 2 coming together here. I kind of like the symbol. I didn't quite get it at first, but I think it's an okay logo. It's like a sideways figure 8 or infinity sign tilted on its side or something. Come to recognize Creative Cloud by. Oh, good point, Richard. Yeah, I always thought it was 2 C's for Creative Cloud, and it could be. And that's another way that you can integrate some of that meaning. One of them's in reverse and the other's forward. So that's a good point. I never really even noticed that. So that's, you can see here, this wouldn't show up. If you were to shrink this down, this big thing with all this dimension, what I call an embellished logo. And those are kind of cool, but they're reserved for places like your big, hero area on a website, or maybe on a video, maybe someplace where that logo is going to be shown really large. Maybe you don't want to use this down here. That's very simple, 1 color, quick read, something you see as an icon or something. That the whole point of that logo is to be recognized very, very easily, almost subconsciously, because you're picking up in your peripheral vision everything subconsciously. Your brain sees that, and you're exposed to something like this time and time again. You're going to remember that over being exposed to something like this. But since this is used in a bigger setting, we're looking at this in a larger area, larger context, we've got all this color going on. There are cases in which you might want to use a logo that way. But when we're first developing that logo and identity, you want to stick to as simple as possible. I'm recommending single color, black on white or white on black. I'll give you the option, though, if you want to use color, that you're free to do that on this project. But I would even recommend maybe just doing black and white. And for that reason, it helps you to develop a more effective logo, because it's an easier, quicker read if you can just do black on white, or the reverse, which is white on black. So a lot of people get confused, and they say that, oh, well, this is the logo. Well, it is the logo, but it's what I call an embellished version of the logo that is not very adaptable to every place that you'll see a logo. I mean, when you think about the places that a logo is going to go, on the side of shopping bags, on the side of, maybe it's on the side of a pencil or pen, maybe it's on a t-shirt. This would be like a very expensive t-shirt if you were to get all these colors in here. So, there's a good reason to keep that logo simple, but there's also sometimes a good reason to break out of that simplicity, as we're seeing here with Adobe doing this kind of embellishments. And it's kind of neat to see the wood grain and the highlights, shadows, and the colors. But when on this project, I want you to stick with the simple, keep it really, really simple. I guess I don't know how else to explain it. Avoid this kind of stuff. Avoid all these drop shadows, bevels, and gradients. A lot of people want to use gradients. And that's something you'd want to avoid. Even texture for this project, I'd recommend against it. I won't mark it down for using texture if it's appropriately used, but in this case, I think you want to stay away from it in most cases. But depending on the company you choose, you might want to include some texture. This is wood, looks like a wood grain texture that they used in this logo here. And it's interesting. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's you can see what they're doing. They're just taking that logo and making it a little bit more visual, a little more interesting. And there's definitely good reason for that, but you have to start with that base. You have to have your core identity, which is this, and guarantee that when the designers at Adobe developed this logo, they started simple. They started with sketches. They started with a lot of different concepts and worked those through the process. And I'm sure they kept it simple. They added color probably later into the design. And this stage in the game would come much later after this mark here was established. So Richard mentioned it was 2 C's. I really like that because I've never noticed that before. 1 C the right way and the other C the opposite way. So that's kind of neat that they've integrated CC into this. It makes me like the logo even more. So this CC would be, in my opinion, a really good example of a logo if you wanted to choose that one for a good logo. The other thing that it looks like is a cloud. So we've got that cloud concept within this. And yet a third kind of element that they're working with in this logo is the exchange. If these lines kind of overlapping is indicative of maybe a yin yang or something, a little bit, not necessarily yin yang, but the lines are kind of coming into one another. So we're looking at this exchange to this exchange. So we're crossing boundaries here, and it's all about that exchange going on. So you can see in how many ways that this very simple logo is working. And it takes a long time to kind of get that subconsciously, as Coralie's pointing out. That's good. Subconsciously, it takes a long time to kind of whittle that down. And the way that we do that and get all of these elements into something like in a logo like this that is this effective is by a lot of brainstorming, for one, a lot of sketching, which could also be called brainstorming, I suppose, and a lot of just writing down words, as I did in this case, writing down keywords. That's another method. There's a lot of different methods that you can actually use here for brainstorming, but the point is that it tends to be a process, and there is you're just seeing that when you see that final logo, that's just the tip of the iceberg, as the saying goes. Behind a mountain of research, you're looking at that final result. This, for example, that little creative cloud, you're probably seeing more than 100 sketches in real life, probably easily. And they probably had several different designers doing more than 100 sketches. It wouldn't surprise me. At least 50 sketches on each one. And like I say, there is a mountain of research and development that goes on behind the scenes of any good final successful logo. And we're kind of in class, we're pushed a little bit to the point that we're kind of in a rush to get these done sometimes, and that's understandable. We're working with what we have. In real life, these projects, these logo design projects and redesign projects tend to go on for months and months and months, sometimes more than over a year, but they do tend to go on for a long time, and there's a lot of evolution in the whole process. So something to consider. We're kind of doing a very broken down kind of ultra fast version of what this logo design process would be in real life. But I think it's good for you to do it and get that experience and kind of know what the steps might be. Just keep in mind that it would be more or less this process, but just drawn out to be a lot longer if you're working at an ad agency or something. And you're going to go through more revisions and more additions, more concepts. Probably it's fairly common to have several people working on the same logo. Not all the time, but I've come across that scenario a few times where designers will kind of take their own approach. And it's almost like what I was talking about, 99 Designs yesterday, where you kind of compete on a team to come up with a logo. And I've been in that scenario before. It's not always the way it's done, but I have experienced that before. So anyways, so 2 good logos. Moving back to the project here. We've got, I have 4, but that was because I just wanted to talk about in my write-up here. I'm probably not going to read all this, but I wanted to talk about how they've evolved, and here's their old one, here's their new one. And that was how I chose to approach it. It's just as legitimate to have, if you just wanted to. I mean, when I look at this, I think that my presentation's a little bit confusing because I could probably just get away with doing that. Oops. I'm just blocking them out so we can't see it here. But quickly, just to show as an example, I could probably just get away with doing that. And that might be better, but because I wanted to approach it in a way that I talk about the old versus the new, and how I talked about how they've gone back to their more simple origin in both of these examples. And I wanted to talk about that in my write-up, so that's why I chose to do it that way. And it's a little bit of a change from what the assignment's asking for, but as long as you're adding to that through your changes, then that's often looked at as a boost to your grade rather than not following the directions. So if you're presenting it in a way that you're using common sense and you want to specifically show something like that, then by all means you can show the 2 logos like this. It's just confusing for me because I should have put them on left to right, and followed the same format here. And that was confusing, but I'd do it different next time. So anyhow, let's see, that's the 2 good logos, and these are the 2 bad logos. Intermountain Healthcare is like the biggest healthcare provider in the Salt Lake Valley. I see this logo all the time, and I've never liked the logo. I've always thought it was a bad logo, to be quite honest with you. I see it all the time, and it reminds me of Cold Pricklies, because the font is prickly, the typeface in this case. The typeface is prickly, has these points in the serif. They're kind of rounded coming up, but it looks like they are sharp from a distance, and it's blue, which is a good kind of a color in itself for healing, I think. Blue and with a hint of green. It's not a bad scheme, but it's also, there's a drawback that it's a little bit cold. And when you add that with the prickliness and the coldness of the blue, it's just not a very good, in my opinion, representation of healthcare. It's cold and prickly, point blank. And I see this logo all over the valley. I see it daily. If I go outside and drive down the street, I'll see it in a building right down the street from my house. And so that was one of my examples. It's like I see this every day, and I've never liked that. It reminds me of cold and prickly, and not something I want to experience if I'm going in for some sort of medical care, healthcare. I, as a client, I want to see care, so things that might be warmer colors, things that are rounder, things that are more friendly in that nature. As a customer or client, that's what I would be more drawn to for my healthcare provider personally. So in my opinion, this was not a good logo. So I chose to do this, and I chose to do a redesign on it. We'll see that in just a second. The DC garage doors, I just got this straight out of the phone book. Obviously, it's just probably something that the owner didn't want to pay a graphic designer to do and just came up with something on their own. Maybe that's fine and good. Maybe the Yellow Pages did it on their own themselves, and sometimes that's a matter of someone wanting to start a business and they call the Yellow Pages people and they have graphic designers on their staff, and that might be, used to be actually, I knew some people that got their start that way as graphic designers, and they were just doing a lot of logos this way and ads for the Yellow Pages, and they would just make these last minute ads, and business owners would take them for their corporate identities, just done at the very last minute. And I knew people that actually, that was another way we were talking about yesterday, how you can get your foot in the door and how you can get started. That used to be a way of getting started for some people, or getting business. I've heard some people do it. I've never had much luck with that method personally, but I know some people that have. They just end up calling or contacting these companies and, saying, would you like an updated logo? Or I've even heard of people doing the logo and going in and sending it to them, or some version of it. However, I guess you want to approach that. But the phone book, like I was saying, those newsstands, you'll see a ton of these kind of last minute logo designs that might have just been by the owner or someone in their family, or something that they didn't really consider the business aspect of the design. One thing I should go back on really quick on the Intermountain Healthcare I'll mention. I know there's some questions here. Okay, let me get to the questions in just a second, but let me say some good stuff about it. To me, this would be a corporate logo, like to their staff. Maybe they want to show assertive by the pokiness here, and kind of this little symbol of a person kind of jumping out and reaching up to the sky or whatever. He's kind of bursting out. I mean, I can get the concept here, but overall, to a customer that's coming in with health problems, this doesn't suggest to me that I'm going to get really great care here. But maybe it does to some people, because maybe it suggests that their staff is going to be assertive and on the ball and kind of poked and prodded into assertiveness. So that might be an argument that the designer might bring up, and maybe that appealed to the staff. But for me, on a level of like, I guess it just, I've never much cared for that pokiness and the points on that logo, and that was one reason why I redesigned it, to be a little bit more friendly. But since these guys are so large and they're like one of the biggest healthcare providers in the valley, maybe it's just my opinion that this is not the place that I want to walk into necessarily, so much as the place that has more caring colors and the rounder shapes. But again, that's just my opinion, and you can argue that, and a lot of times argue may not be the best word, but you can point out these things with the clients, and you won't always they won't always take your side, put it that way. But a lot of times they will, and it's worth putting across your point of view and communicating with them, because that suggests that you care, and that's always a good thing. Just be respectful in how you approach it. And when I look at it, I think if they're wanting to represent themselves as large, a really big company, and what they are, they're the biggest in the valley, and maybe they want to represent themselves as corporate and assertive, and you obviously don't want your surgeon to be falling asleep in the operating room, and maybe that gives some sort of strength that way. So it does, I think the logo does in some ways even have something going for it in that sense. But at first, it kind of gave me kind of a cold and prickly impression, and I wasn't quite in favor of that. So maybe neither of these work really too well. Maybe the one that I redesigned here doesn't work too well. I'm kind of going overboard with the heart, maybe. I'm not loving that now that I'm looking at it. I did this design a while ago. As I'm kind of going back and forth, I'm in the middle with these two. My redesign, which I have in both black and white, and then color. So anyways, I might try, if I'm going through this inability to decide and I'm going back and forth, experiencing some cognitive dissonance about the logo, to use a pop psychology term. I can't quite make up my mind on which one works. I might just try a whole new different direction. I might just try a different option. And for Intermountain Healthcare, I mean, I think that, they have their logo in so many places that, it'd be a really expensive thing to redesign it at this point. So, maybe it just works fine as it is. I did want to bring up those concerns. And a lot of times there's not necessarily a right or wrong answer, but there are concerns. There's points that you want to make. So, all right. So Corley has her hand up, and there is some questions here. It looks like, what is their tagline? And how much do you charge if you do that? So charge, what you would charge is completely different from this class, but, some people bill by the project and some people bill by the hour. I like to bill by the hour, but that's, more business side. I won't go too deep into that. But usually you kind of balance the two and kind of give them a ballpark figure and then break down an hourly figure. So that's definitely another class. But did you want to talk, Corley? I noticed you had your hand up.
Yes, what I was asking really with regards was on the hospital one, Intermountain Healthcare. So often with logos, they represent or reflect the tagline or the marketing line that underscores that hospital or healthcare. And so I was wondering, maybe is that the reflection from the people standing up, or that little thing with all the people that looks like a sprout?
This.
Yeah. So that's a lot of times with logos. I know that, when you're given a complete package, the one reinforces the other. So that's why I was wondering if maybe that's why that was in there.
That's a good point. Yeah. And that's, I think, this is a cheery kind of image with these kind of raising the arms and jumping up. So it's rising. So I think you make a good point there. And I like the fact that you bring that up. That it does kind of elevate the logo quite a bit. If we were to, let's check this out. If we were like what I was doing before, if we just saw this. Now it's really looking cold, isn't it?
Well, the key is the colors. Those colors are too close. They're too close in their hue and stuff. So that's why I like what you did with the green on the bottom with that one, and bringing out the green and reinforcing that when you did that.
And these colors to me just look more caring. I don't like the heart so much, but now that I'm looking at my own work later, I did it. I would change some things, but that, like I say, in real life, you get a lot more time and a lot more kind of ability to work things out and develop in different directions. And here we've got a week, we've kind of got to throw these things together a little bit just to get some working knowledge and some idea of the process and some experience. But really, I mean, if you're serious about being a graphic designer, you need to be looking for opportunities outside of class to kind of practice and develop your design skills. Like we were talking about even 99 Designs yesterday, or better yet, making contacts with friends and family, seeing if they want, logos, and working with people that way. But yeah, I think in these classes, they're kind of a challenge because we really just have that such limited time to really develop these in a way. And I notice that I do that often. If I'm looking back on a lot of my projects, they're really just things that I came up with, right straight off the bat here, right out of the gates, and they're maybe not my first ideas, but they're within the first few ideas that I have. And in real life, that's just not how it's done. We're definitely set on a fast time frame, which part of the goal is to get people through college, through school, so you guys can be, getting out there in the real world and being professionals and making your money back that you spent on student loans. So that's the idea, and that's a lot of times why these classes are broken down and so fast. And it's not a complete real experience, even though you'll hear, we try to mimic that real experience as much as possible, but we're definitely on a timeline that isn't quite as realistic as the timelines I've experienced on these sorts of projects in real life. So that's something to keep in mind anyway. But so was there anything else? Carly, I'll just lower your hand if you didn't have any other comments on that. Or did I answer your question? I'm not even sure if I fully did. Or
We're good. I just was interested because you made a statement about looking at logos and maybe redesigning them and taking them to the people. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea, because I have those kind of thoughts all the time, but I wouldn't know how to, if they loved it, what would be the charge. But we'll talk about that offline or another time. That's all. Great.
Okay. Yeah, I think too, when you're doing logo development, I always have a personal rule, and it's not the only rule out there. I think other people take a different approach. I had a creative director that took a different approach, but I don't like to show the client anything that I don't really like, because sometimes, or a lot of times, they'll end up liking a logo that I don't really like, but I think that they might like. And that's allowing the project to get away from me. I no longer have like an ownership or feel like I'm tied to that project anymore. I'm more doing it to impress the client and get the job through. And I think everybody now and then might be guilty of that from time to time, because on a lot of these projects, you get to a point where you just want to get it done, and you just end up, kind of trying to please the client in the end, especially when there's been a number of back and forth, and some projects just escalate to that point that it's a challenge, and you just want to get it done and out the door. But that's really kind of losing ground. You don't want that. Ideally, you want to really like those logos that you design. Excuse me. And in my opinion, only present the ones that you really like, that you feel strong about, that you love, in fact. And if you have that sort of connection to your job, your projects, you're going to enjoy your job a lot more. You're going to have a lot more longevity in terms of working with others. And that is how I would recommend approaching this at a creative director. Say that he likes to just throw in a crummy logo, like a good one, an okay one, and a really bad one, or a couple of good logos and then a bad logo, just so that they can kind of choose the one that he's pushing. So he had his own method, but everybody develops their own methods for working with others, and they vary. Like I say, I only like to show things that I really like, and I think that's just a part of developing your own personal style and your own personal approach. I don't think there's a right way to go about it for everyone, because obviously, like, this guy disagreed with my approach on how I would take that, how I would do the logo development process. So you'll get some different opinions, but I think that's my opinion on how I would work. So anyhow, let's go ahead and move on here. I'll just talk about my sketches really quick. I like some of these ideas a lot more than what my final turnout was, believe it or not. And that's another thing, that when the project's too rushed, you might overlook some of your better ideas because you're just trying to rush it out the door. And I might admit to being a little guilty of that, even on this project here. You know, teachers, we are sometimes pressed for time as well, like everybody is. Graphic designers are commonly pressed for time, and like I say, when you are, there's a tendency to maybe throw things together a little bit without really considering maybe things the way we should, and kind of taking our time with things and keeping them as quality as they could be. I am not happy with any of these now that I'm reviewing them now. Could I live with them? Yeah, I suppose if it was like we're having to meet that deadline, which sometimes comes up. A lot of you guys relate to this with having full-time jobs and trying to do school on the side. You may not have as much time to put into the classes that you would like. But if you can, it really behooves you to put that extra time in. And, maybe even have, talk it out with somebody else, somebody that you trust, to give you feedback on some of your projects. Because when I come back to this, I'm like, well, when I look at some of these ideas in my sketches, I see some better ideas. Like I kind of like this Intermountain thing when we look at the Adobe, the Creative Cloud, for example. We had all those elements that were working together, which was kind of a neat integration. And this I have, if you look at, kind of this, I don't know what you call it. This like it's just like a line graph, like if you're looking at some of those readouts on a readout screen, it just goes across from left to right of the screen. And it's I don't know what you call it. It's like a blip monitor where it kind of monitors your heartbeat, or and that's the most common one I'm thinking of. So it's whatever you call that, electroencephalogram, or whatever the name is. I forget what it is. But you can see it's like, blip, 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 but it's also a mountain range, kind of. So we can get the mountain range here. So Intermountain. And here we've also got the sun that we're using as the O. So there's a lot of integration going on with this one that I really like, that I just, ended up going with this one, which I don't really like as much, to be honest with you. I would redesign that and probably explore this maybe a little bit more. Maybe this one I kind of like too. So anyways, take your time, maybe print them out, stick them on the wall, stick them on your bulletin board, put them on the counter, and walk by them several times throughout the day. That's another thing you can do to kind of improve how you're looking at them, and look at it from a distance. Another thing I like to do is look at it in the mirror, because that gives you a fresh perspective on your sketches, or even on your final logos. So if you just look at ways to kind of see it in a different way, that can be really helpful. And time will do that. Looking at a logo over time, as I'm saying here, I did these a while ago, and I look at them now, and I can see things that I, didn't really, they're not horrible, but they're definitely an improvement over this one, the DC one is. This one I don't know that it is, to be honest. Intermountain Healthcare, I think, might be a little bit better, especially if we're considering their goals. But, this is something that, while it's okay, while I can live with it, I think that I could have done a little bit better on this. And we also got these keywords. I just put friendly, warm, caring, professional, circle, cyclical, helpful, experts, organized. So I've got keywords in here for DC garage doors, I've got bold, blocky, strong, tough, stable, and it looks like it was cut off down here. But keywords are really helpful in addition, especially when you're trying to brainstorm your concepts out. And I recommend those. I think get a dozen or so at least that you really like, and then whittle it down to like 3, maybe with even 1 at the height of those 3. So you have like kind of a hierarchy of words that you want to show in that logo. So anyways, it looks like we're about ready to take a break. I'm not sure that I have anything else to say here other than the other way to do this would obviously be to save this as a PDF. And that's as easy as you can do a save as. And then down here, just go Adobe PDF. And that would be that. And then you don't have to do anything. Let me go ahead and do that. That's a good way to kind of wrap up this part. Let's go save as. So I'm happy with everything here. We'll go down here to do an Adobe PDF. Click save. It'll just be saved in my last place. Let's maybe change the title of this to 1A. And you don't have to do anything here. You can move right through it. Just do Illustrator default. That's fine. It seems to work better because I can get in and edit it a little bit better. You can just skip and just go save as PDF, and that will take care of this whole thing. And in this way, you don't have to combine the documents like we did at the beginning. So this would be another optional way to do it if you want it. So this way we put all of our artboards together. We got this in the right order. I've got my labels on here. It's a little nicer. I can, a little more presentable. We can tell what's going on. And seems to come together a little bit better that way, but it's your option, whatever you want to do, however you want to present that. So any questions on this before we take a 10-minute break? Okay, no questions. Good, good. All right, let's do break for 10 minutes, and we'll see you at 3:20, 3:21. All right, we're back. Hold on, just actually give me like 1 more minute. All right, sorry about that. So let's continue. You know what I thought I might do, since I don't really like this logo here and I've got some examples already to work from, what I could do is maybe redesign this Intermountain Healthcare logo, kind of another quick version of it. We'll take these and we'll move them off. So for the second part of the class, we'll just kind of go through in Illustrator, maybe a version of how we could make this logo work. And I'd liked, for example, this top one. I also like this one, but maybe it's a little bit too, I think, not sure what the right word is, but I'm kind of liking how this concept came up on this top example. So let's go ahead and redesign that as one example. What I'm going to do and recommend for all of you guys is to work in black on white. So, whether you're working with text or graphics, black on white tends to be a good way to go about it. Healthcare in here. Actually, I'm just going to type it lowercase because I'm not really sure. So we get our text here, trying to figure out maybe something. I mean, that's a pretty nice font. It's a friendly font. Intermountain Healthcare. It is, it's not necessarily the one I'm after, but it's a little bit more friendly. We're not working with quite the pointed serifs that we were over here. So it's a little bit more friendly, just the fact that it's flat. So those pointed serifs are kind of adding a little bit of a look and feel to it that maybe we don't want. Is that what I was talking about earlier, that cold, prickly, if you want to counter that, it might be the more assertive kind of alert staff. And, maybe that's one reason why that works. But let's say that part of my goal is making this a little more friendly. And that's what I'm after. Hold on just a minute. Sorry, wrong number. Hi, this is John. I'm just calling back. I just recorded some loud music. I guess they have turned that down. It's been turned down for the last minute or so. Go ahead and cancel it because they won't hear anything if they come right now. But if it starts up again, I will call you back. Okay, thanks. Bye. All right, sorry about that. Dealing with some minor issues going on here. Back to the task. What I'm looking for is a font that might be assertive, but maybe not too pokey or pointy, what we were going after here. Something, round serif is what I chose before, but maybe if we want to do assertive and just stick with that, this Myriad Pro font, could be well suited for the job as far as what we're using here. So maybe I'll stick with that. This is just Myriad Pro. It's a default for Illustrator, and there's a lot of different fonts you could use. I won't spend too much time on that, but I think this might actually be a pretty appropriate font for what you might want for this. So maybe that O we might change to like a perfectly round circle, like a sun. And maybe take my pen tool here, point, shift, click, click, click. Maybe we'll do a point here as well. Level that one out. And we're just kind of symbolically using this as mountains, as well as kind of this little heart monitor. Take these and align them just using the white arrow tool. I just select the points, just use this to align them. So I did kind of like this concept. It's just taken from a rough sketch, and whether or not I change that O, I like the fact that it could be also double as a kind of a sun behind the mountain. It doesn't necessarily have to.
What about putting the sun behind the whole word or something like that?
Behind the whole word. What did you mean by that? Oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about. Something like this. So please raise your hand, Corley, before just jumping in. But that's fine. I want you guys to talk. I just want the presentation to be good for other students as well. So those interruptions can kind of get a little bit jumpy for people who are watching the recording. But yeah, I do want your feedback, so that's good if you have ideas. The thing is, like here, I think that's more what you're talking about, which is a little bit different concept. I mean, not that that's a bad concept. Maybe it's something like, more of a half sun or half circle, which is also fine. Maybe it's something like that. But again, maybe that's a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? I also like to, have ideas, kind of drag them to the side like this. Maybe it's a little bit too visual, too graphic. Maybe we want to keep this a little bit simpler and, not have that sun rising behind there. I mean, you could go either way on it, really. But you can, to a point, have too many things trying to be worked into a logo to the point that it actually does get kind of confusing. Why do we want to have a sunrise associated with the Intermountain? We may not. So let's just try to stick with our original graphic here and keep it as simple as possible. And I think if we do that, we'll be a little bit more on the right track. It'll be a little bit easier for us to work with that way. So Here I want to add some variety. What I'm going to do is take this healthcare, and in fact, what I had before is actually what I also, I'll go ahead and stay with what I had before, and that was all caps. So we'll go down here and change case in the type menu, go uppercase. And let's see, let's bring out our palette. Character, let's see. What I want is tracking, because I want to track this out. So maybe try 100. I'd like it to be smaller because it's not as important. We're not going to put that much emphasis on this word, but we can track this out quite a bit more. Maybe try 200. And if that's not enough, I can always just put my cursor in there, hit shift, hit the up arrow. We can just, span this out as we want. Now, general rule on this is that you don't want to put tracking on something that is lowercase letters, because lowercase letters are designed to be read together and they go together. So I probably don't want to do this, for example, with Intermountain, and you can even look at that. Let's, take a look at how this is if we put 200 tracking. It just looks a little weird. It doesn't look as good when you put that letter spacing in between on lowercase text. Lowercase, designed to be read with its initial settings. So uppercase, on the other hand, it's good to kind of space out that way. But a general rule that I've also heard on this that I tend to go by is, if you make any more than like about one letter space between, then you're going too far. And that's right now 1 letter. So that's about the maximum that I typically want to go on this if I'm concerned about readability. So, maybe I want to bring this in a little bit more. And although I like the size and I like that it's kind of spread out, pull this over here so you can see it. Now we kind of like what I have going, which is with this simple, basic little heart monitor thing, doubling as the mountains. So it's Intermountain and healthcare. So we can still emphasize the word Intermountain, making that a little larger, and then de-emphasize healthcare by making it a little smaller. Now we get a little bit of variety going on, visual variety, large and small, usually a good thing. Also, what we call contrast. We got some contrast in the size, and that adds some visual interest, so that's good. With arrangements, what Corley was talking about, there are things that you can do here that, maybe we can work at integrating these, and maybe it's more like this rather than something like that. I kind of like, even though I have my initial drawing a little bit different, we can always change things as we go. But I kind of like this here. And maybe even if I want to see this version in a different way, it might work really well in here. And I think that this kind of has this humble kind of approach. We're below the mountains instead of above the mountains. And when we talk about contrast, we're looking at the placement. In this instance is kind of suggesting a bit of humbleness, having our name below the mountain range versus kind of lofty and high above it. Again, it's more of a gut feeling and what tends to kind of feel right to you. Not necessarily a right and wrong way to go about it, but I'm kind of liking this one a little bit more. So I'm going to lean toward that. And again, I'm just working on straight intuition right now based on what I think is going to work. And so far, I think I like that. Maybe the mountain range could be a little bit more centered, so we can work on that. All I have to do here is make some minor adjustments. Just actually, I'll just select these points individually with the white arrow tool, direct selection tool, and then I'll just nudge it with the right arrow so that it looks centered visually. I also want to make sure that this is centered with the eye. I can sometimes use little gauges, little tools to help me with that. I could just draw a line like this to help line that up. Do the same over on this side. Looks about right. So there we've got kind of a nice little logo that works. That is the mountain range. We doubled the electroencephalogram. I don't know if that's right. I'm just have that in my head for some reason. Maybe it's watching too much house or hospital shows or something with it. It's just that readout, that little blip thing I'm going for. And it's also, I think, works pretty well as a mountain range. I might want to do things like, you know, do I want to bring this down so that it's closer to Intermountain? And if I did, I can play with it that way a little bit. This one we can bring down as well. I might want to use the computer to do that. We can do that by just selecting like so, and then using the align up here, align anchor points like so. Adjust that. We've got kind of a big one in the middle that kind of draws our attention. Make it a little higher. Although if we do too high, it might look a little rugged. That's the only thing. And maybe that's another judgment call that you can always look in the mirror. You can, you know, if you have like a handheld mirror, you can look at it, you know, over, you can turn your chair around in your, where you're sitting and look at the monitor in reverse. And a lot of times, if I do that right now, I have a mirror, I can see mistakes when I look at it backwards like that. And I can see things that might tend to make it look a little imbalanced. And right now, after I just did that with a mirror, I'm realizing that this eye over here, I could actually, instead of lining it up straight with this, I think I could bring it out a little bit, and that's going to help the visual balance. Maybe not quite that much, but those are certain things that I can't see, you know, unless I have a tool like a mirror that I'm looking at. And I'm realizing because this end is round, this looks like it lines up better on this side than on this side, but the overall balance is looking better. I can really only get that kind of stuff if I have a tool like a mirror that helps me, or I spend some time and come back to this, or I have somebody else look over my shoulder and point something out. But there are different ways to kind of approach this and get visual feedback that will, you know, help your logo out. So I was just using a mirror for that. I'm just going to adjust it a little bit here. You know, maybe I could even bring that down. How does that look? Always asking myself little questions like this, but it kind of does that blip thing, but maybe there's a baseline on that. I could do some research. I kind of like it this here, all the same level. But these are just little minor design problems that you tend to run into. You know, I like what I have here enough that I'm going to say I might want to stick with that and maybe do a different version where I bring this down like so. And maybe instead of centered, we could bring the mountain range, the weight, you know, either at the beginning or more toward the end. Oops, I didn't want to select that. But. So we could have kind of an asymmetrical thing here. So it comes, let me just move that up. This will be easier. And we can maybe put it at the end, which looks kind of good. I like that too. If not, maybe more than the center version. In fact, I kind of do. It's got a little bit of asymmetrical look to it. And do I keep it up high, or maybe do I like keep it kind of low to this? It's kind of good. I kind of like that. Does it look like maybe higher? I might like it a little bit more higher range. So the other thing that you almost always do with logos, we did some tracking on this one, but kerning is really important with letter pairs. You're looking at this one, I don't see like a whole lot of problem with letter pairs here. Here I'll go, you know, the T and the A look a little bit too close, so I'm gonna put my cursor in between those and go into the kerning right here and just select this and then just nudge my, you know, just kind of get a visual gauge of where this T and the A are gonna look good, because that was a little close. So you do this in pretty much all logos. You're gonna definitely wanna use kerning, and the settings in the default font are not gonna work for you. 99.9 times out of 100, any sort of word mark you're using, you're going to end up kerning these letters. So, you know, this I could spend some more time with if I, again, is another good thing, take that mirror. It can be just any mirror that you have. I'm just looking at it in the reverse. I'm liking it so far. I think it looks good. I'm noticing that this now appears to come a little bit far. So I'm going to bring this in. And again, this is stuff that's hard to really notice unless I'm looking at it, you know, using one of my tools, like a mirror in this case. I'm right now, you can't see me, but I am holding up a mirror and looking at this in reverse. Good little trick. Try it. You'll like it, I'm sure. You want to get more perfection on these logos. A mirror is a really good way to go. But any of those other methods can work, whatever you choose. I just think you can end up struggling on this part quite a bit if you don't have some extra tools handy. So visually, healthcare, I'm also lining up. I think I'll nudge that just to the right. I might want to save this other one as an alternative version. Again, like the symmetrical, I do kind of like this one too that I'm looking at it now, and I'll go back and fluctuate between one versus the other. But I kind of like the dynamic mountains on more on one side than the other. And maybe instead of going all the way here, we can start maybe after the eye and move this in. Just bump this a couple of times. And instead of 3 weights, I want to simplify my little thing here to match either healthcare or match Intermountain. What I want to do to balance it out is match healthcare in terms of the weight, stroke width. So what do I have to do that? Let's take this option, move this up. Let's just make sure that, you know, we get like, let's use the crossbar. Let's use this E. You can delete all that because all I'm going to use is the E here. And you notice so that's really quite good. I already had a good guess on that. You know, it's just a tad bit thinner, but like it's so minor that we can just try it out here. Let's go to stroke, and I think we'll take the weight down to 0.5. Do tab 0.4 tab. We're just kind of fine tuning it here. 0.03 tab, and you can see it kind of came down. Let's go 3.5 tab. And we'll call that about as exact match on the horizontal strokes of that font. About as close a match as we can really get here. Maybe we'll go 3.8. How about that? Now we're going to be exact. And with logos and finalization, it's good to have them pretty exact in the process, but you know, you want to get them really exact as they're finalized. All right, so I like how that's looking in our black and white version. let's consider some colors here. So we've got our black and white. Now I can't remember. I'm going to have to look back at the assignment now. Was it asking for a black and white logo or a color or both? I believe it was just asking for one revision. And you can do it in just black and white, black on white if you'd like. You can have that option. Or you can change the colors however you want to do it. But what we've got is redesign the two poor logos so they're better ambassadors for the company name. Create 3 roughs. Well, I'm not worried about that. So all we're doing is redesigning those. I'm choosing to do 2, both a black and white and a color. All you need to do is 1. So this is, I like this so far. Maybe we can pull this down a little closer to our logo, something like that. You know, I can fuss with this a little bit more. Again, I want to get it to a point that I really like it by the time I show the client, so that I'm not in danger of them choosing something and getting held on to something that, you know, that I don't really like, that I don't really want. And as you know, the client has the final say. If they like something, you're kind of stuck with it sometimes. So that's why my choice in presentation is to just really have only the logos and whatever it is I'm presenting them, only show them the things I really like. So I like this. This one seems a little bit more friendly. Symmetrical tends to be a little bit more friendly. I also like this one. So these are just some different options I might come back to, but I don't need to present them to the client now because I don't want to avoid that confusion. I want to have control of this process as much as possible. And I think if you present them with too many options, you can easily confuse the client, and we don't want to do that. That'll slow up the process and usually make it so that your final logo isn't as good, because you'll get a lot of different feedback. But what I wanted to do here, I'll explain that. This was coming really close to the dot on the I, so I just decided to move that over and give it some space. And really, while I'm at it, I could probably even work the I in so that it's the end of this here. And I just got that idea as I was working with this. But since I also like that, I'm going to take this version, I'm going to move it down. So if I come back to this, I always have that to come back to because I'm actually satisfied with this as it is. But let's see if we maybe work that little dot in the I in here. Okay, I'm going to lock that Command 2. That's a little off there. I'll just adjust this. But this is just an idea that I had as I was going about this. I don't know that I'm going to like it, but I kind of like the idea that it's this little lip here. And maybe it's kind of, when you see that, a lot of times you have that sort of trailing line there, or you know, the line, there's like the dot and the line is kind of trailing it. So that's all I'm going for here. Might even want it to connect. I don't know. Maybe that looks good, maybe not. We'll look at it from a distance. Backing out is another good way to do this. You can zoom all the way out to, I don't know, what are we looking at here? This is 50%. In my case, I'm working on an 8.5 by 11 screen. You know, that's a good thing because, again, when we talk about logos being subconscious and where they show up, and a lot of times they need to be small, does our mind pick that up as that logo? Does it matter that that little blip is that dot and that little tie-in? Was it just kind of like a maybe a creative last minute thing that I'm going through that maybe it's even getting in the way of what I want my point with this to be. Maybe I don't want this. Either way, you're going to work through a lot of different iterations of this. You're going to go through some variety, and that's all fine and good. That is expected. And that's just something that's desirable. You want to work through a lot of these different concepts, and hopefully you have fun doing it. In my opinion, that is the fun part of graphic design, is those kind of initial concepts that you come up with. And the reason why I don't want this to just end on this note, because that's kind of a down note. So I want to have this bounce. If anything, I want this to bounce up. We could even do something like that, where this overlaps into the A. I think that might have been what Corley was talking about earlier. Now, maybe we can, as you do these things and go through the progression, you'll come up with other ideas. And you can see I came up with many ideas here without sketching. In my opinion, sketching is a better way to go. It's more creative, but you can also come up with quite a few good ideas just in Illustrator that kind of come up at the last minute. We could maybe cut out that A, notch out the A here, or work something out so that maybe it comes. I like the overlapping, so that's kind of nice. But maybe it's something that I have to work with some more. Maybe it's just something that looks too wonky. I don't want that for medical stuff. Maybe for a kids company that maybe Stella's for next week. Stella's, because they appeal to kids, we can do some kind of wacky, zany stuff. But for this, I'm probably going to want to keep those ideas fairly conservative. I'm trying to figure out how I can work this in to the A here, and maybe have this to look good visually. But now it's almost looking like a tech company. So, maybe that whole little side bit of exploration, I might like that. I might come back to it. Let me unlock all here. And I keep coming back. Like, this has a good feel to it. I really like the feel of that rather than this. I'm kind of coming back to this one, even though this one was the one I left off with. So it is sometimes hard to decide that final thing, but if you're not really ready, then perhaps you haven't sat with it long enough. Perhaps you haven't had it reviewed by somebody that you trust, and maybe even the client. But that depends on your point of view. Like I said, I don't like to show the client anything that I'm not really happy with. So I might even explore other things with this, like what Corley was saying, having some of that overlapping. Generally, overlapping does look good. And if I was to maybe take this concept, maybe we can do that here. I'll just do it really quick. Command-Shift-O to make outlines here. And once we have outlines, we can take this. I'm just going to actually Command C, Command F. Maybe we'll boost that a little bit. And then Object Expand, fill and stroke. And then here we can subtract from front. Let's see if this works. Might have to mess with this a little bit. Minus front. So that's kind of the idea there. I just did that really quick, but I kind of like that. It brings this element a little closer up to this. And I could, as I say, play around with this, maybe get a little bit better visual solution here. I don't know if I really am a fan of how this lines up perfectly. I might want this over here, but I can do that. Let's go ahead and reverse it. Say I can make this line up, I think, a little bit better. Not to get too hung up on this. It's not the point of this demo, but hopefully I want to show that I do want to get this right. I don't want to speed through it too much, as I was talking about earlier. But I think that will be a little bit better placement of that, those elements here. So it's kind of jumping around on me a bit. Anyway, let's say this is my final. I like this. I do like this. I think it's good. Do we need the H there? Maybe not. Let's delete that. And that way we still read it. Can we read it small? Let's zoom out until it's healthcare. See, I could work with that some more on that smaller scale. In fact, I won't, well, see, I'm obsessed with now doing quality work and being happy with my work. That's probably a good thing. It is a good thing. If you're in the business, you want to do that. But this would be an example of how I want to go back and just adjust this so that it's readable. We're not scraping the bottom of this side of the H. Bring this down. We're just going to notch out maybe the T and the H, and just bring that down like so. So we'll do this, go back, minus front from the Pathfinder on the H. Delete that little bit. Bring this down so it's right in between the T and the H. And now that's fairly readable. If we look at it on a small scale and zoom out here, it's pretty good. What I want here, though, is a little bit more white space between those two. So that white space, as I said yesterday, is as important as the actual physical space, if not more important. So, in this case, I want to make it the same amount as this, I'm guessing. But I want to pay attention to those things. So I believe that'll work because when I zoom out, I can still read this. It doesn't interfere with readability. See what we had here before. If we're zooming out, let's say to, what are we going to be at here? 50%. We still read that healthcare. There's a little bit of interference there, but like I say, we can work on it some more. But overall, I like it. I like both of these. I could show either of those to the client. I could show this as a variation, and I'm happy with this. Could probably even show this, but let's say we're just going to get rid of this one. We're just going to show black only. You're welcome to do that. If you don't want to use color, you don't have to. That would be just fine in this case. If I wanted to use maybe these warmer colors, I kind of like that. Maybe the drawback is that it's not the warmer colors. Maybe move this out a little bit. Maybe I line that up a little more. Not looking at my mirror this time, but anyways, I don't want to fuss with this too much because it's getting away. That sort of level of perfectionism is getting away from the presentation. But in real life, you guys will want to do that and keep fussing with this, keep tweaking it, adjusting it until it's really to your liking. And this is almost there, but it's not quite in real life for me. So, some of this stuff here, the way it fits in here, I think I could make it a little better. Even just adjusting the line a little bit can help. But anyway, moving on. Maybe let's see our colors. If you want to just do, like I say, just black only, you can do that. Let's take a look at these colors. We're kind of running out of time here, but I want to show you anyway. Maybe we want to look at a couple different color schemes because I spent some time choosing this color scheme earlier. it would make sense to kind of work with it a little bit. Maybe we go blue in the middle, blue toward the bottom. See what both of those look like. I'm going to do the orange. I just want the stroke at this point. Whoops. So I kind of like that. It might be a little hard to read that blue on the white. So again, we're not quite finalized on this, but things that we want to consider. Let's look at our earlier scheme here, color scheme, where the blues are a little bit close, maybe a little too close for the logo. There's not a lot of contrast there. That's a nice color, professional looking. Do we need more professionalism in this logo? It's, again, kind of a judgment call. If we want that dark blue, we can do that. Maybe orange, kind of a color of alertness. This is kind of a muted orange, but it might work with this blue. Let's have a look. Not wild about it. Let's maybe change this one to that orange. Maybe change it to the green that they used up here, because this is a nice choice of colors in my opinion. Why don't we use their green? Green is another good healing color. Tends to be used a lot for medical stuff. I do like that. Oh, maybe this could also be green. Except it picked up, when I used the eyedropper tool, it picked up the stroke and not the text here. So what I want is the text. Maybe we'll just go with that. Kind of like the blue a little more. So it's going to take some time for me to decide the colors. Again, you're welcome to just hand in black on white logos, because that is really important. That's how we'll be developing logos in this class. And next week is just using the black on white. Sometimes if you have a vision from the beginning and you want to do white on black, called the reverse treatment, you can do that. But it kind of depends on what you are after. Maybe in my case, it best tells the story to bring 3 of these. I can group these like so, and hand in all 3 if I want, or just keep it simple and we'll just do this. Although maybe these can be bigger, since we're also concerned with the space that they occupy. And the overall presentation and how that comes together. I want to be aware of how that overall space is used, which can also influence the client's decision. So anyways, that's what I would end up turning in. I'll get rid of all these extraneous little things, do another export, PDF, don't change any of the settings, and that should be good. But hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of how I might break this down from my earlier sketches, take a different approach, and this is a different concept than what was here. I might show them even both of these. But now that completes the assignment. I've got all 5 pages. I've got the presentation that I'm happy with, and that is the end of the presentation. So it looks like Carly took off. She probably had to go somewhere else. But Richard, did you have any last questions before we wrap for the day? Okay. No questions? All right. Sounds good. Maybe we end on like kind of a calmer note. That's not as spiky here. So I don't know. I end up doing a lot of tweaking on projects like this, but I kind of like this logo and this second take that I did a little bit more than the first. A lot of times the clients will want to see alternative presentations, and these are two good alternatives. But we only need to see one in this particular case. So, all right. Well, glad to hear that, Richard. And I'll look forward to seeing your guys' projects this weekend. And thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Talk later.